Hello and good evening. They came, they camped, they conquered. That's what protesters are claiming today. The climate change camp at Heathrow culminated in direct action at BAA's headquarters and a handful of splinter demonstrations around the country. But after a week of mostly peaceful protests and with minimum disruption to the airport's business, what exactly has been achieved? Well, Matt Barbette is at Heathrow for us tonight. Matt.
Well, Riz, the campaigners I've spoken to just in the past hour or so say it has been a unanimous success. They're really pleased with how it's gone over the past week. We'll be hearing from them in just a moment. We'll also be hearing from a local person who doesn't want the third runway built here at Heathrow. And you'll remember that before this all started, they were a bit concerned about it overshadowing their efforts to not get that runway built. We'll hear from them in a second. They seem to be fairly happy too. But first, here's Gareth Furby, who's been looking at today's events.
This protester locked herself to railings outside BP's HQ in St James's Square. Her head is covered in treacle, which was meant to look like oil. Other protesters superglued themselves to the front of the building. At BAA's HQ near Heathrow Airport, one employee faced an interesting reception. BAA had advised most of its staff to use other offices while the protest was underway. Some protesters had camped out overnight here in the company car park. There were also arrests at a cargo warehouse near to the airport. This afternoon they were packing up at the climate camp. The protesters believe it was a success with an important message. But what do people who live nearby think? A week ago we spoke to Brian Sobey, who's fighting a third runway. We went back to him today and he thinks the climate camp may help his cause.
There's always the possibility that public opinion will change against the expansion of the airport. There are a lot of people now who believe the expansion of the airport is wrong, and it may well be that there are more of them. Whether the government will take notice of more people is another matter.
For most of the past week, several hundred officers were on duty here at any one time. The final bill won't be known for some weeks, but the Met says it had no choice but to deploy in strength.
You and I could be having a very, very different conversation here if Heathrow had been shut. You'd have had pictures of families waiting hours. You know, the security perimeter fence could have been breached.
The climate camp organisers say their action is now over. But police say as a precaution, their operation around Heathrow will continue tonight. Gareth Furby, BBC London News.
Well, it might not be immediately obvious behind me, but people are slowly starting to trickle away from the camp. Joining me now is climate campaigner Paddy Gillett, and also Christine Taylor, who lives locally and is from No Third Runway, or NOTRAG as it's also known. Paddy, a success has it been?
An absolute success. We wanted to come here and highlight that the government's plans for a third runway and for airport expansion in general is absolute madness in the face of a climate crisis that we're staring down the face of, and we've come here and we've done that, and we've got global coverage around the world making that very point.
Is that what you set out to achieve, because you weren't so accommodating of global mainstream media to begin with?
We set out to achieve many things. One thing we wanted to achieve is highlight the madness of building third runways over the top of existing and very old and well-established communities. Runways that are going to facilitate the growth, the massive and mad growth in flights that is going to make climate change inevitable for the UK at a time when we should be reducing our emissions. The government and the businesses like BAA want to make them worse, and not only that, they want to profit from it.
Christine, a lot of local people were concerned about this being on their doorstep to begin with it overshadowing their own efforts. How do you feel now?
Yeah, I think there was a little bit of concern. We'd heard the usual pre-publicity making us worried about what we might be getting into and people warning us. And we asked all the questions. They came down and did some meetings beforehand. But all those fears sort of disappeared the moment we started to meet them.
So your relationship with the climate campaigners has been okay. What about the way the police have been involved?
It seemed extremely heavy-handed, particularly at the start, obviously I understand they had to shut this road off, but making all the facilities that they needed to live on this field, they had to come down by hand with all their vehicles parked half a mile away, and they had to be wheelbarrowed in. That sort of set the tone, with lights going up, helicopters all night, vans, etc. Policing improved from Wednesday, but on Sunday, yesterday, we saw some shameful scenes.
So not happy about that?
Absolutely not happy. I mean, we're making complaints about the way the police have behaved, whereas, by contrast, the climate campers have been superb.
OK, Christine, Paddy, I'm afraid we have to leave it there. Thanks very much. And they are packing up here. In fact, they say they're going to leave it in a better state than they found it. Back to you.
Matt, thank you.